Maryland is in a state of emergency as a severe tropical storm makes its way up the coast. I'm breaking down everything you need to know before this weather maker arrives.
Plus, people in Ocean City already feeling the impact.
It's going to be a pretty good storm coming through.
How they're preparing for the storm's arrival. Then, some weekend events downtown already canceled.
The safety of our residents is our utmost priority.
It's going to put a damper on things.
The impact to the long-awaited return of Artscape. Homicides in the city are down, but police are still sounding the alarm.
Shootings involving juveniles are up significantly.
How the acting police commissioner plans to address the juvenile crime crisis as shootings and car thefts surge out of control.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Look at that high wind and a rip-roaring surf. You can hear it and see it in Ocean City. Fox 45 is on weather alert. The wind is lashing the eastern shore as Tropical Storm Ophelia bears down on Maryland. Governor Wes Moore declares a state of emergency before the worst of it hits tomorrow. And you're looking live right now at our weather radar. These are conditions in Baltimore, Towson, and also Ocean City. And they prepped for the storm in Annapolis earlier today. Many of Ocean City's live cameras are down as the wind gets stronger. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson. We have team coverage on that storm tonight. Olivia Dance has the latest from Ocean City. But first, Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers is in the studio with an update on that storm's impact. Jonathan.
Yeah, Ophelia is certainly going to be an impactful storm for us here in Baltimore this weekend for your weekend plans, especially Saturday night, and the rain just on the doorstep. Actually got an alert from my Fox 45 weather app just a few minutes ago that the rain was probably going to start here at my location in about a half hour. So keep that in mind. Things getting worse before they get any better. And it's a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm now. Could become almost just on the doorstep of a hurricane. In fact, it's only 5 miles an hour shy of hurricane status right now. Makes landfall overnight into the wee hours of tomorrow morning, probably right around sunrise, and then quickly weakens. But Ophelia is going to provide plenty of rain and plenty of wind as we head into Saturday night. Tropical storm warning. South of Baltimore, basically, you get south of our area, Dorchester County, Maryland Beaches, as well as Culver County points south. This is where we are talking tropical storm warnings. Look at all the rain. There's a center of circulation right there coming into radar range. What we can expect around here, again, especially tomorrow night, heavy rain, wind. Could see 2 to 3 inches of rain here in the city. Counties north and west, 1 to 3 inches of rain. North and east of Baltimore, a solid 2 to 4 inches. And then you get down into Anne Arundel, could even have moderate coastal flooding on top of 2 to 4 inches of rain and gusts to 50. And could see some wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour along the eastern shore with lots of rain as well. Even a tropical storm warning again as you work toward Dorchester County. Breaking everything down hour by hour in the computer models coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
We are urging all Baltimoreans to take steps to make sure that they are safe and stay out of harm's way. As always, the safety of our residents is our utmost priority.
Mayor Brandon Scott warned city residents that they need to be ready for this storm. The city distributed sandbags in Fells Point and on Frederick Avenue. The mayor says those areas are prone to flooding. Now, residents can park their cars in city-owned garages, which is good news, to help avoid flood damage this weekend. And folks, it can flood on you in a second. For more information, head to foxbaltimore.com. Well, the city is also canceling Artscape for tomorrow. The mayor says the storm conditions would make it unsafe for patrons and performers. BOPA will make a game time decision on Sunday's events this weekend as things progress. Fox 45 will have more on the cancellation coming up at 10:30. Well, public safety agencies are ready to fight flooding in Annapolis. The Annapolis Office of Emergency Management distributed sandbags to minimize damage from the storm. Officials say if you're in a high-risk area for flooding, make sure you restock your emergency kit with food, water, medical supplies to last at least 72 hours. In a live look at Ocean City tonight, they are feeling the impacts of Tropical Storm Ophelia in Worcester County. The eastern shore is expected to get hit the hardest. Olivia Dance spent the day in Ocean City tracking conditions and speaking with visitors.
The Ocean City Boardwalk bustling with people on Friday afternoon.
It's going to be a pretty good storm coming through.
Despite Tropical Storm Ophelia heading straight towards the coast.
I think people are just curious to see the ocean and the furiousness of the ocean. And it's definitely fast and furious coming in.
Coming in with powerful winds.
Definitely is a lot stronger winds from when we were here earlier, and it's more consistent.
Some preparations underway before the worst of the storm strikes.
We saw them take down some of the flags this morning off the poles. I saw some places folding up chairs and putting that away because you know it's coming.
They're closing early. Things are closing down, you know. I mean, other than that, not really off the boardwalk. So, I mean, we've been out here since about 1:30-ish. So, I mean, there were a lot more people out earlier. As you know, as it's getting closer, people are starting to kind of fade out.
But the looming storm and wind blasting sand across the boardwalk.
We had this trip planned. We thought about canceling it, but we came anyway.
Didn't stop many businesses from staying open.
We're just going to ride it out and see what happens. But I think within the next hour or two, the storm's supposed to come in, and then it's just supposed to come overnight with like 35 to 50 miles an hour winds. It's going to be crazy.
And many from enjoying their last trip of the summer.
We didn't know about this.
Until you got here, or like right before?
Like, on the drive here.
On the drive here, you found out about this. Did
Yeah.
you guys think about turning around, or no?
No.
Making the most out of a stormy situation.
We always enjoy coming here, but
If
it's
I'm
who you
with
come
him,
with.
it's always good.
Always who you come with.
Reporting in Ocean City, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Put the power of the Weather Authority Storm Center in your hand. Download the free WBFF Weather Authority app for your smartphone. Use our powerful Doppler radar to follow storms to your street. Go to your app store and search WBFF to get started. Now we'll track the storm and keep you updated on its path, strength, and any damage that happens. Stay updated online at foxbaltimore.com and by turning to our morning news for our weather team's full coverage and live reports from Ocean City. That starts at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. By the way, we'd like to see how the storm is impacting you in your community. If you can safely share pictures and videos, please do that. Scan the QR code on your screen or head to foxbaltimore.com/chime in. Turning to a city in crisis, the number of murders and shootings in Baltimore are down this year, which is some good news, but juvenile crime is soaring. Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley points to the number of young people involved in non-fatal shootings and record high numbers of car thefts. This is parents, prosecutors, and police are calling for lawmakers to do more to curb juvenile crime. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us tonight with a closer look at what the acting police chief is saying about those problems. Keith?
Well, Kai, city council members peppered acting police commissioner Worley with several questions at his confirmation hearing last night, including concerns over violent crimes and auto thefts involving young people. And tonight, more on Worley's response. Acting Baltimore Police Commissioner Richard Worley telling council members at his confirmation hearing Thursday about the seemingly successful drop of overall crime in Baltimore City.
As of today, homicides are down 20% and non-fatal shootings are down 9%. But let's be honest, the stats don't really matter if the citizens don't feel safe.
But there's concern about the uptick of another troubling statistic.
Homicides involving juveniles are down compared to last year, but shootings involving juveniles are up significantly.
As of Monday, a total of 96 juveniles have been shot this year in Baltimore, 13 of them killed. Overall in the city, 200 homicides so far this year, with nearly 500 people shot but survived. Those numbers down significantly from this time last year. But as some comfort comes from those stats, police struggle to get a grip on the juvenile crime crisis. Those numbers soaring, both violent crime and others.
Can you talk about what the strategy is to deal with the increase in auto thefts, specifically Hyundais and Kias?
Hyundais and Kias are only about 33% of the stolen autos. It's another 67% of other vehicles that are being stolen.
Auto thefts have spiked more than 220%, with an average of more than 29 auto thefts reported a day. About 3% of those cases ending in an arrest, and the suspect often a juvenile. Worley telling the council part of a strategy to combat the concern.
We have to increase our car stops. We have to look for the vehicles that look suspicious, check the tags to see if it's a stolen car. All those different things, and be more proactive as we drive through the neighborhoods to pay attention to try to eliminate a stolen auto before it actually happens.
Well, you may recall police hosted a free steering wheel lock giveaway to Hyundai drivers about 3 weeks ago. The car manufacturer paid for those locks. Councilman Costello says he wants more distributed, but this time the city may have to pay for those locks. That's because Baltimore City has sued Hyundai for not providing their vehicles with anti-theft equipment. The city, of course, joining other cities across the country in similar lawsuits. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Well, last night, members of Baltimore City Council's Oversight Committee voted unanimously to approve Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley's nomination. During that process, Worley addressed the department's failures in responding to the Brooklyn home shooting.
My top priority now, Brooklyn was a huge incident. We have to continue to address the shortcomings there and make sure it doesn't happen again. But my biggest thing is community policing. We had a consent decree meeting today. That's the only part of the consent decree that we are not on track.
Well, Worley has admitted members of his department ignored warning signs that the event could be dangerous, failed to call for backup, and were disconnected from the community when they were relayed to police. He says if confirmed, his top priorities will be addressing those issues along with car thefts and juvenile crime. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you blame police leadership for the Brooklyn home shooting? So far, 94% of those who voted say no. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote. When it comes to juvenile crime, concerns from people on the front lines of the crisis grow louder. One question remains unanswered. Will lawmakers listen to them? Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains.
Prosecutors and defense attorneys often on opposite sides of a debate, but juvenile laws are uniting some.
And the time is now. They're really looking at these issues.
I think the law does need to be changed.
Now prosecuting kids 13 and younger for nonviolent misdemeanors is the reality after the Juvenile Justice Reform Act became law. Critics like police, prosecutors, and now other attorneys argue the law is not teaching kids their behavior is wrong.
This legislation has put our children at risk, our communities at risk, and the entire state at risk of extreme chronic violence.
They see no reason to stop committing crimes because we are giving them no reason not to.
That really does them a disservice because now, instead of addressing the problem when they're 12 or 13, they wait till it's 16 or 17, and the problem has really become exacerbated and turned into much bigger issues.
In Baltimore City, Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley says kids are driving the surge in car thefts. With more than 7,700 taken this year alone, a 223% increase compared to this time last year.
What we're finding is that we continue to arrest young people over and over again for these stolen autos. So that's the biggest push, is that we have to hold the young people accountable.
And it's not just Baltimore, where law enforcement encounter kids as a reason the crime is rising.
Kids get out of the car, and the minute you stop them and you pull them aside, the first thing they say to you is, "Are you going to call my mother?" Because they know they're not. They know they're underage, and they know they can't get in trouble.
I've been out on patrol many a times, and I've gotten the same reaction from juveniles over and over again, which is, "Well, I'm a juvenile. You can't do anything."
While some lawmakers acknowledge there are concerns with the juvenile situation,
yes, that number has dropped over the last 10 years, but I'm not sure it's because there has been a drop in juvenile crime. I think the numbers have simply dropped because in many cases, police officers have not brought charges in many cases.
especially with more kids using guns to commit crimes.
It is totally unacceptable where we are.
The Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi and other supporters stand by the plans. Schiraldi reiterating his view during a House hearing earlier this week that young kids don't belong in the adult criminal justice system for several crimes.
They start to sort of think of themselves as little 12-year-old thugs, and they self-identify in ways that we really don't want them to. If they're under 13, we can provide them with services informally.
With parents,
they're teenagers, they know what they're doing.
They know right from wrong. They need to start locking these kids up. They need to change the laws.
Police and prosecutors, others as well, experiencing firsthand the growing crime concerns. Community leaders warn lawmakers should listen to the people on the ground.
Any of those politicians who insist on ignoring their residents and insist on ignoring the reality of particularly the issue with juvenile crime that we've seen across the state, but especially in Baltimore City, they should really look at the former state's attorney as a cautionary tale.
Community activist Eurypsy Morgan talking about former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, who was ousted when Baltimore voters overwhelmingly picked a more tough-on-crime prosecutor in 2022. Members of a House committee will meet again in November to talk about the juvenile crime problem. It's just unclear if the people on the ground will be heard.
We may have this idea to tell us that we actually do not see what we see. Family members have expressed to us that they will not accept this. So who are we speaking for?
For Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you want them to talk about juvenile justice laws, we have their phone numbers and email addresses on your screen. You can also find their contact information on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, Maryland's U.S. Attorney Eric Barron is weighing in on the crime crisis in Baltimore and beyond. What he says is behind the drop in homicides. Johns Hopkins University one step closer to mobilizing a private police force. We take a look at the policies they're proposing and the firestorm it's creating. And our weather alert continues at 10:30 tonight as Tropical Storm Ophelia moves closer to the state. How it's throwing a wrench into many's weekend plans. Maryland's U.S. Attorney Eric Barron sat down with political commentator Armstrong Williams to talk about his progress on the crime fight in Baltimore. He says homicides are down 20% in the city, and he attributes that to a partnership with local prosecutors and law enforcement.
Today, Baltimore City is down 20+% in homicides, I think 10+% in non-fatal shootings, but it's not just in Baltimore City, it's throughout the state. And in Prince George's, we're down, I think as of today, down 10% in homicides. So we've taken that on as an office in an unprecedented to an unprecedented degree, and we've shown that as a team, federal, state, and local, and community, we really can make a difference, and we are.
Barron has been using what he calls an Al Capone approach to crime for a little more than a year, using other federal offenses like fraud or having a gun in a school zone to get violent offenders off the streets. You can find more on Barron's efforts on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Well, active Baltimore City police officer Eric Payton is facing charges. He's accused of misconduct in office and theft. The department says once leaders learned of the allegations, they notified the state's attorney's office. However, the department did not say what those allegations are, giving no more information about the case. The department says Officer Payton is suspended without pay. We first told you last week about the Baltimore City Community College president's salary hike uncovered by Open the Books. Now a new audit ranks the president of Baltimore City Community College as the second highest compensated community college employee in the country. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker reports.
I don't care about the timing of the payments. She's averaged $34,000 a month since she was hired.
Dr. Deborah McCurdy became the 14th president of the Baltimore City Community College in 2019. And since then, CEO of Open the Books, Adam Andrzejewski, says they've discovered she's made more than $1 million.
She's been on the job for a little more than 3.5 years. And during that period, she's received cash compensation wages as disclosed by the Maryland office of the state comptroller of $1.5 million. It's a staggering amount of money.
Andrzejewski says last year, President McCurdy made $593,000, a more than $200,000 raise, and was the second most highly compensated community college employee in the country.
Within her contract, she's got all kinds of perks, including $40,000 housing allowance, $12,000 car allowance, $25,000 annual bonus, and a staggering amount of paid time off, up to 63 days a year. And that's not even reflected in the cash compensation that she's taken home. We value the paid time off benefit of nearly 12 and a half weeks at another $100,000 benefit value.
Andrzejewski says the college says she qualified for $190,000 in pay in previous years and was not paid out, and that contributed to the salary she made last year.
I guess they're quibbling with the timing of her payments. So the college is actually represented now orally in communication with us, but hasn't provided the backup records. Her initial contract we still don't have. The breakdown of her compensation since she was hired on the $1.5 million of cash compensation, we still don't have that. But what they're saying is that she qualified for payments of up to $190,000 when she was hired in May of 2019, 2020, and parts of 2021. And then this was paid out toward the end of 2021 and 2022, which spiked her pay.
He's now calling on the state auditor to investigate. As we're told, the College Board of Trustees held a meeting to discuss her salary. Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News reached out to the president's office for a statement. We have not yet heard back. Well, young people are committing crimes across the country. New developments as 2 Las Vegas teens are in court for allegedly running down and killing a retired police chief.
I'm Kayla Gaskins. Coming up, the latest on the migration crisis at the southern border.
And continuing to track almost Hurricane Ophelia. Right now, a very strong tropical storm, winds at 70 miles an hour, plenty of rain, wind, and even some storm surge to come our way. We're tracking it as it makes landfall likely late tonight in the wee hours of tomorrow morning along the Carolina coastline, and then puts down copious amounts of rain and wind with a washout for your Saturday and Saturday night. Could have some improvements, though, on Sunday. We'll get into that in my full forecast. But for now, tropical storm warnings out from Calvert County all the way to the Maryland beaches and points south. I'm going to let you know when things will finally improve. My Weather Authority forecast.
And another live look right now in Ocean City as tropical storm Ophelia bears down on Maryland. This is Worcester County, our easternmost county in the state. We continue our coverage on how it's impacting the Eastern Shore and Baltimore this weekend. Stay with us. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is calling the surge of illegal migration at the southern border an invasion. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has that story from Washington.
A deteriorating situation at the southern border. Levels of illegal migration approaching all-time records, on track to surpass them. The small community of Eagle Pass, Texas, with a population of 28,000, dealing with an influx of 5,000 illegal migrants the past few days alone. The town's Democratic mayor declaring a state of emergency.
You have all these thousands of people just walking in without any consequence whatsoever.
Blaming the federal government, saying Eagle Pass feels abandoned by Washington.
Anyone from the administration, please come visit Eagle Pass. At the very least, somebody up there in the White House needs to put out a statement giving us a plan.
The White House taking fire from reporters.
What do you call it when 10,000 people illegally cross the border in a single day?
On day one, the first day of this president's administration, he put forth a comprehensive immigration reform that we believe that was desperately needed for this country.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott declaring an invasion at our border, slamming Biden's policies. The White House and Texas playing tug of war. Federal Border Patrol agents seen cutting razor wire, allowing migrants in so they can be processed, apparently acting on orders from D.C. In response, the state installing even more wire.
Many people believe the answer to this crisis is New York City.
New York's leaders say the surge has maxed out their resources. Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul sounding very different this week.
We're at our limit. If you're going to leave your country, go somewhere else.
Than she did in 2021.
You're welcome with open arms, and we'll work to keep you safe. We'll not only house you, but we'll protect you.
President Biden deploying an additional 800 troops to the border to help process the migrants. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
A controversial police force takes another step forward. Law enforcement experts and students weigh in on the Johns Hopkins police plan. And here's a live look right now at Ocean City. Tropical storm Ophelia is here. The latest on the storm and its impact. Fox 45 is on weather alert tonight. Take a look at this. Waves in Ocean City earlier this evening. Tropical storm Ophelia causing some really choppy water to move in, churning up that surf and pushing that wind around. And take a look at these conditions. That's our weather radar, and Baltimore on the top and Ocean City on the very bottom. Let's go right to Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers. Jonathan?
Yeah, you can see those winds and waves picking up down the ocean. Around here, it's going to be wind and rain. The rain already moving into Anne Arundel County. We've got wind advisories. I-95 south and east. That includes Baltimore City through the day tomorrow. And then you get to Calvert County and points south of that. It's a tropical storm warning that's in effect, and that goes for the Maryland beaches, Dorchester County southbound as well. Let's go ahead and put on the national version of the radar, and you can really see this thing getting its act together and making the final push as all that moisture and even the lightning and the thunder right around the center all wraps around and begins to push northbound. So a sign of a system that's not really giving up the ghost just yet. Maybe even strengthening to almost a hurricane or maybe even a hurricane. There are hurricane watches up for North Carolina coastline into tomorrow morning before it makes landfall. For now, though, the winds coming in out of the north and east about 10 to 15, gusts to 20, actually even gusts to about 30 right now here in Baltimore and Annapolis. On top of that, coastal flood warning in effect. This is going to mainly be for the Annapolis area, but all along the Anne Arundel coastline. That is going to go through tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's high tide could be particularly high here in the Annapolis area, running at least 1 to 3 feet above average with that extra storm surge coming in. And hurricane or not, tropical storm, whatever it is, by the time it gets here, it's going to be a lot of rain, a lot of wind for the day on Saturday into Saturday night. I'm going to let you know how long it's going to last and what you can expect in your neighborhood hour by hour. Latest computer model runs coming in. My Weather Authority forecast.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Well, the storm hasn't arrived in Baltimore, but it is already impacting the city. The mayor says that he gave a briefing on storm preparations and says Artscape has been canceled for Saturday. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has the latest on what the city is calling a difficult decision.
Well, the crowds have been heavy here ever since the gates opened this afternoon, but all that is about to change. It's the end of the work week, and on Charles Street, there's a different sound in the air. For the first time in 4 years, the gates to Artscape came swinging open. It's the largest free arts festival on the East Coast, a festival that brought Eileen Gillen and her painted glass.
It's quirky, it's eccentric, it's original.
And a festival that had Jeff Levine strolling down Charles with his homemade percussion band.
You know, real drums make music sound better. Oh, look, that's the exact stroller I use right there. See your stroller?
This is the first year since 2019 that the city has thrown this party. It was canceled by the pandemic, plagued with funding freezes and staffing shortfalls. And now, a whole new threat.
Lots of rain, wind, even coastal flooding coming our way. Ophelia looking very healthy.
The tropical storm that's threatening high winds and heavy rain this weekend has now forced the city to cancel this festival on Saturday.
Of course, I'm not happy, but the reality is my number one responsibility is people's safety.
The Saturday closure means everything that isn't weighted down will be broken down in anticipation of the storm.
A lot of the structures are weighted with concrete. The things that aren't weighted will be taken down tonight.
We're going to have to break everything down. All of this fits in my car.
It's Mother Nature, so what are you going to do?
For Justin Bush, the Saturday shutdown is cutting a hole in what he'd hoped would be a banner sales weekend for his Caribbean cuisine.
Chicken quarters right now. About to put on some jerk ribs in 1 second. Everything in favor. I mean, that's a full day of sales that's going to be missing, right? You know, and Saturday is the longer of the 3 days.
But for art lovers who have waited 4 years for an Artscape comeback, it's finally here.
We all missed it, but it's back.
So this festival will be reopening on Sunday, but it could be another year before Artscape fully comes back. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Put the power of the Weather Authority Storm Center in your hands. Download the free WBFF Weather Authority app for your smartphone. Use our powerful Doppler radar to follow storms to your street. Go to your app store and search WBFF to get started. We'll be tracking that storm throughout the night, keeping you up to date on the path, strength, and any damage. You can stay up to date online at foxbaltimore.com and by turning to our morning news for our weather team's full coverage. That starts at 7 in the morning. This week, Johns Hopkins University took another step towards mobilizing its own private police force. After months of debate, you can now find a draft of the policies and procedures officers will follow on the university's website. The next step is getting feedback from students and staff. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports.
I definitely would feel safer.
33rd Street.
Citing an uptick in crime on campus.
I've heard of a lot of students having some incidents.
I know somebody personally that happened to, like, try to take them to an ATM with their cards.
Johns Hopkins University finalizing plans to step up its current security with armed officers. Online, the university releasing a rough draft of policies and procedures for its private police force with a 60-day deadline for students and staff to give feedback. In the past, similar plans met with large protests and harsh criticism.
It could open up a lot of possibility for, I don't know, discrimination, stuff like that.
Polarizing issues still dividing those on campus today.
It's going to pose a risk because they're not actual officers.
Students are paying a lot of money to be here, so it's obviously part of the university's responsibility to make sure that their students are safe.
There's really nothing wrong with this plan. You have everything covered.
According to law enforcement expert Melissa Pinkleton, in a city more than 500 officers short, private police will alleviate pressure on BPD and provide a higher degree of safety for students.
Officers are going to be able to respond to so much faster, which means getting help to people quicker that need it.
Additionally, she says the new conduct, operational, and personnel procedures, which include the use of body-worn cameras, should provide peace of mind.
So a lot of those fears that they might have could very easily be squashed by just having an informational meeting.
Throughout the public comment period, the university pledging to host 2 virtual Ask the Expert forums to, quote, help community members understand the progressive policing reform taking place nationwide and the draft policies that are of most interest to the public.
Unfortunately, it's needed.
Hopkins said, yeah, we listened to your feedback, but we're going to do it anyways.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Now, there will be 60 days to submit your feedback. A link to the feedback form will be posted in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. There was a shooting in East Baltimore tonight. Just before four, officers responded to a scene on St. Lo Drive near Clifton Park. One man had been shot and was pronounced dead at the scene. If anyone has information about this shooting, you're asked to call city police. According to Baltimore police, 200 people have been killed in the city this year. 492 have been shot and survived. Those numbers are down from last year, but the city is seeing a spike in youth crime and car thefts. Well, this year, more than 7,700 cars have been stolen in Baltimore. The targets are Hyundais and Kias. Between the 9th and 16th of this month, 292 cars were taken, more than 41 a day. And it's not just an issue. Kids stealing cars are across the state. According to a police group, of 4 to 5 kids carjacked a woman in Glen Burnie at the Giant parking lot this week. That victim says a group of 4 to 5 boys approached her in the parking lot and demanded a ride to Baltimore. When she refused, they pulled out a knife, pushed her back into the car. Now, once they arrived in the city, she says she pulled out her own knife to defend herself, and police say those kids ran away. Well, in Las Vegas, police say teenagers hit and killed a retired police officer who was riding his bike in a designated bike lane. Video shows the car appears to hit the man on purpose. Police believe one of the suspects, a 16-year-old, recorded that video. The other suspect was 17 years old at the time of the August incident. Officers suspect the teens of stealing 4 cars and being involved in at least 3 hit and runs. The DA is calling the suspects a danger to the community and plans to prosecute both of them.
Even though the passenger may not have driven the vehicle, we believe under the evidence that he is an aider and abettor and equally guilty.
Well, the older teen who police say drove that car is facing 18 charges, including murder. The 16-year-old is facing 3 charges, also including murder. Stay with Fox 45 News. We'll have a complete report on that incident coming up on the late edition. Well, this week, a national emergency was declared at one Texas border crossing as thousands of illegal migrants crossed into the United States. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called on the National Guard and the Department of Defense, which sent out hundreds of active duty soldiers to the area. This week, Cheryl Atkinson sat down for an interview with former President Trump and asked what actions he would take if he were president.
I understand moving forward you would plan to reinstall some of the border controls that you had if you were elected again.
Yeah.
But how do we deal with, or do we deal with, the millions that have come in since?
You have to have a mass deportation program. That's right. And you know what? When you say that, everyone's going to stop coming. You know, one of the reasons I was successful is they knew it was going to be very, very hard to come in, because when I was elected, I said, we're not going to have anybody coming in illegally into our country. And we went through a long period of time where that statement really resonated, and it resonated strongly. Then we built almost 500 miles of wall. We had tremendous